Welcome to Across the Pond Sports Network's WNBA podcast, Across the Pond Liberty. Episode 2, we got 2 games under our belts. Uh, Liberty started off 1-1, and first game on the road against the Mystics, and Mystics prevailed. Whew, what did you think about how the Liberty started off in that game?
Oh, so obviously going into it, we had our little bit last week. You were kind of thinking Mystics would take the win, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna stand strong for the Liberty. So I was watching like the first 2 minutes of the game, and the Liberty started off so strong, and I was like, oh yeah, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. Look at that chemistry. And I was just really, really excited to see how they were playing together in this first game. And all of a sudden, like 2 minutes in, Washington just brought the energy, and it just turned the game around. I mean, it went from the Libs kind of having quite a significant lead for those first couple minutes to suddenly the Mystics, they brought the energy, their defense stepped up, and then the rest of the game was just complete dynamic shift from the way that it started off. Yeah, it was quite disappointing, I suppose, to watch because I was quite very much rooting for the Liberty, and to have kind of got that little taste of sweetness, seeing that first couple minutes where I was like, yes, this is it. But yeah, Mystics played really well, and I have to give creds to them.
Uh, I just I know what you mean about those first few minutes. It was like, "Oh, okay," some of them have played together over in Europe, overseas, and then it just took a turn, and the Mystics had it. I mean, you can't you can't understand how much chemistry is gonna work or not until you've, like, really gotten into it, and the Mystics were at home. They were ready to go and just took control, but I think it was disappointing that first game to see how much the Liberties struggled to score, and the shooting percentages were very, very low. And we talked about how much, they could be good this year and all the potential, and then just, ooh, it was like Brick City. So
Mhm.
that was disappointing. But as much as we want the Liberty to win, and my mother, hi mom, she may be referred to as the Vic. She said, she's like, "Your Liberty just, didn't look good, and that Natasha Cloud was looking great." And I was like, "Yeah, we talked about how we like Natasha Cloud." She's like, "I like her." I was like, yeah, we like her too." And just the Liberty taking charge at that, and I told my mom, I was like, "You need to watch him on Twitter," but because look what happened on Twitter with the fever. But that Mystics game, it started off with all that hope, and then it just, yeah, like you said, died, and the scoring wasn't as good as we'd hoped for it to be, and the Mystics just had it. And I mean, I'm happy that Deladon is back and healthy though, because that's just good for everybody. Um, and
Yeah, yeah.
they're still gonna be that contender, even if they had some struggles with the Sun the past 2 games the Mystics have. But first game of the year on the road, everybody's getting back. So don't want to like dangle too much time or waste too
Yeah,
much
yeah.
time
Don't
talking about the
don't
Mystics
wanna
because we're
don't
gonna,
wanna
yeah.
Yeah, don't wanna dwell too much on that first kinda game, but yeah, like you said, I did just feel that a lot of the shots, shot percentage really, really wasn't great. There were kind of like little moments a little bit towards the end of the third quarter where it looked like, oh, Liberty were getting their kind of flow back and it was looking good. But it just felt for the majority of the game that they weren't waiting to set for the right shot. It was almost like they were kind of just throwing up shots that maybe weren't the best shot selections. And they of course just weren't going in, and that is all complete creds to just how solid and consistent the Washington defense was. So yeah, it's an unfortunate loss, but it was very, very well fought by the Mystics. Just amazing defense is all I can say.
Yeah, and I mean, they proved that they're gonna be a contender, the Mystics are, but, yeah, I think we can skip on to the next game and get to the joy of playing the Fever.
Yeah.
Do that? So, I remember I said that I thought the Mystics were going to take it, and I hoped I was gonna be wrong, wasn't, and then he said, "No matter what happens after that, they're gonna have the Fever that's young, and they're just gonna be like, 'Welcome to the league,'" and Stewie was like, "Welcome to New York, and welcome to the
Oh yeah.
league." And I
Oh yeah.
mean, it was the Stewie show. This was maybe one of my most favorite things to watch is when Stewie just can get a pass in transition, in rhythm, and just hit threes. And it was like the fever. You guys didn't have a chance after that first quarter. The game was over very quickly.
Yeah. No, it's absolutely insane. Like Stewie had such an amazing game. Not only a career high in points scored, but also franchise record for the New York Liberty, passing Cappy Pondexter. Just a really like insane feat. And like you were saying, just that ability for her to kind of move off the ball and get the ball and score the basket. I think what Ionescu was saying about Brianna Stewart is that she's a bit of a silent killer in that like she doesn't always bring the ball up. She doesn't go all the time for that 1v1. It's her off ball movement that kills people. The teams they don't see it coming and people watching don't necessarily see it coming, and then you have facilitators like Ionescu and Vandersloot who just see that opening, zip the ball to her, up. No one sees it coming. She is right. She is a silent killer, and she absolutely killed the Fever in the game. And not to mention, only in 3 quarters she
Yeah.
scored 45 points. Forget the
Was it
fourth quarter.
Oh, yeah.
3 quarters.
Well, I mean, they only scored 5 points as a team in the 4th quarter because they didn't have to do anything. I
Yeah.
mean, 85 points through 3 and 29 in the first half. It was yeah, it was the show, and the first time I ever heard about Stewie, I was in Denver, the 2012 Final Four, and UConn lost in overtime to Schuyler and Notre Dame, and that was the year Baylor and BG and Odyssey won the national title, went 40 and 0. So UConn fan was behind me, and I was going for Notre Dame that year, and we were just jabbing at each other the whole time, and it was an overtime game. And she goes, "Well, I don't care what happens next year. We've got the number one player in high school coming to Connecticut." And I was like, "Okay." And I literally was like, "Okay, you know, good on you." Yeah, that was Stewie. That's the first thing I ever heard about it. 4 NCAA championships later, it was like whoever that woman was, that hardcore UConn fan was like, I mean, talk
Yeah,
about being right.
I know.
Yeah.
No, she absolutely killed it, but not only did she absolutely kill it in terms of points scored, but she also got 12 rebounds, which is something that we also can't look over. Like not only was it 45 points, but she got a double double as well. She performed excellently on both ends of the court.
Well, it makes me laugh when you bring up a double-double because we talked about Sabrina being you never know when the triple-double is gonna happen. So, Sabrina didn't get anything in double digits, but she had 8 boards, 8 assists, and 9 points. Just hanging out, just right
Yeah, that's
on,
you know.
edge. Sloot had 8 assists, and one of my favorite things, and we talked about Steph Dolson, Big Mama Steph, always forever
Mm,
right here, and Stewie with their college connection. I think all of Dolson's assists were to Stewie because I
damn.
mean she
Yeah.
scores 45 points. I mean, what half the assists are to her, right? But
Yeah.
and Steph's face sometimes just kind of like smiling with Stewie and then being like,
Mhm.
"Oh, she shot it. I'm just gonna run back on defense." Was making me happy because it was just so just fluid how they
And
played.
there was this one assist from Dawson to, Brianna, which was just a lob pass,
Yep.
alley bucket straight in, and I was just perfect, such perfect chemistry between those 2 at that
Yeah.
moment.
Well, was that passed and wasn't Steph like on the 3-point line to Stewie? So it's like,
Yeah,
you talk about the ultimate high-low, we're just gonna
yeah,
be
it was
22
a
feet
lob.
away. Yeah.
Yeah,
Um, so that I mean, that game was fun to watch, and as a team, I know Stewie was 6 of 9, looking at the stats from the three-point line, but, I mean, everybody else as a team shot 14 of 29 from the three-point line, whereas in the first game, it was pretty abysmal. So, not only just that, the team shooting, the team goals, they had 28 assists. Hey, how do you beat 28 assists? You don't.
you don't.
No, but I do have a shout out to Boston because there were 2 plays in particular where she bodied up Steph Dolson and then and just kind of kept backing her down, and I was like, "Oh, man." The force of these 2 going at each other was fun to see, and then Jonquel went for a steal, and then Boston had her on her hip, and then just took it right past Jonquel, and I was just loving seeing the kid come out and do what, people thought of her, and she wasn't the leading scorer, Nalissa was in her 2nd year, but Boston had 15 points, and just, like, that kind of grind when you're getting killed after having such a successful college career and barely losing, just to see the fight there was nice to see, and so I have so much hope for the Fever, even though it's gonna be a bit
Yeah.
before that happens. I mean, you can see, but that made me very happy to see.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like Boston, she had a really, really great game. I hadn't really seen, I know this was her second game now in the WNBA. I hadn't really seen or checked the stats for her debut, but she was just short of 15 points as well in her debut. She is an absolute baller, and a lot of college students do kind of struggle with that transition from coming to college and then playing in the WNBA. But she's come in fighting for not the strongest team um, at Indiana, and she's just taken it on her shoulders. I mean, like you were saying, various points in the game where she really squared up and she showed these big kind of solid players who she is and that she's here to fight. She's not wanting to be treated as a rookie. She's not wanting to be treated as a younger, lesser player. Like she's here to fight. And yeah, I agree. Credits to her, honestly. She played really well.
And then there was another fighting moment where Stewie had her 45, and Lexi Hole kind of, like, blocked her, and then, Stewie was still trying to go at her. I'm like, "You are down by so much right now, and you're, like, you're getting no more points." And one of the announcers, I think, said, "Oh, she wasn't gonna let her get 47." Just it's like, I love that that's still a fight because they know it's gonna be uphill for a while, but that kind of grind of being young and doing this together, I feel like it could pay dividends for the Fever in the future. So I'm kind of just I like the underdog because they are just at the bottom, and in the Wubble, the Liberty were 2-20. So, a few more see what they get in draft after the season and a trade here and there, and you never know because they've got such a solid youth foundation or young foundation.
Yeah, absolutely. There was another thing you just reminded me there of that made me laugh whilst I was watching the game. One of the announcers says at the start of the game, "Oh, the Liberty have such a talented roster, like full of all stars, and you never know. Maybe one game, one player will get 20 points, and then the next game will be someone else's turn. But I can't see that really they'll be getting more than 20 points a game with such a talented roster." And oh boy, were they wrong. I was kicking myself because I'd seen the score before, like, I rewatched the game because UK time, whatever, and, yeah, I was laughing when they said that, and I was like, "Little do you know."
Oh, yeah. It's just hilarious, but I mean, when someone's on, they're gonna be like, "Let's win," and just keep feeding them that. And
Mhm.
when it's Stewie, we talked about her being in the W25, and she's not even 30.
Yeah,
He's like one of the greatest players ever. Yeah, give her the ball.
give her the ball.
She's back in her home state, give her the ball. Yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what they're gonna do. They're like, "We're gonna win. Doesn't matter how." Well, alright, so you talked about how, like, they have all the all-stars, and so we talked about the trades and Sabrina signing her contract and everybody that was new coming into the Liberty and Sabrina, but, uh, in 2021, they did have an all-star in Betnijah Laney, who in 2020 was the most improved player in the Wubble for Atlanta, and she's had struggles with her career before that because 'cause she'd been waived, she'd had an ACL injury, and she is literally another all-star that is a starter. And it's like, "Oh, we have all these players. There's another all-star there."
Yeah. No, I think we kind of, like, briefly touched on it last week, but we didn't go into any detail about it. But not only did the Liberty have such a strong kind of force in the players that we've talked about, but they have a really deep roster, just through and through. So yeah, we shouldn't like cast a shadow over the other amazing players that they have on the team. Like again, I was watching the games over, and Lainey was performing. Given she didn't put up the same kind of like Stewie numbers, but was consistent. Sorry, and she was a real power force in the games that they played. So absolutely, you're right. Like should not overlook just how deep that roster is.
It's and I remember watching in the Wubble, and when I was placing bets on everything because it's like, "Oh, we're just sitting around. It's 2020." Watching the Wubble, I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna bets." I was like, "Who is this?" That was literally my thought. I was like, "Who is this?"
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and I was like, "Okay." I just kept tracking. I was like, "I'm just gonna keep clicking on her, doing her." So, she made me some money on a couple of those, nice little fan
Yeah.
gambling sites. I was like, "Who is this? Who is this?" And, that's on me, not knowing much about her
Mhm.
before that. And, I believe she wears 44 because her mom did, and both her mother and her played for C. Vivian Stringer because Betnijah did at Rutgers, and her mom, played for at Cheney State back in the day, I believe. Ooh, I will make sure to fact check that before the next
Fact check,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, um, and so she's just a player that will be one of those where how are you gonna focus on everybody and the depth of this? Because how do you guard 5 all-stars?
Yeah.
It's like, okay,
Yeah. It's
yeah,
it's it's absolutely crazy, like, um, kind of what they'd mentioned in that game as well against the Fever was that there is gonna be no player on that team who, should they have a really particularly great game, other teams are not gonna be able to afford to double team any player because you double team one player, they have a whole 4 other players on that court who are just as powerful, just as strong, and just as capable of playing to such a great standard. So, no, you are absolutely right. I think they absolutely cannot overlook the rest of the roster.
yeah. Another player on that roster is Kayla Thornton, and also she's one that I would pick for, one of my players on my nice little gambling sites. They're very cheap, don't worry, I'm not gambling my life away. Uh, and she had been playing at Dallas, and she was part of the three-team trade. Rebecca Allen goes to Connecticut, Natasha Howard goes to Dallas, which she had a great game the other day. Don't sleep on Dallas. And then Thornton comes up to New York. And someone who knows how to work will get all the nitty-gritty rebounds and set some picks, and also physically is extremely strong.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what you're saying. She does do just all that nitty-gritty stuff. You have players who, for example, like Brianna, she had her 45 points, and that's great, and it's the sort of thing that everyone really focuses on. But Kayla Thornton, she was in the background. She was facilitating all of that. She was getting those boards. She is, like you say, such a strong player and such a tough player. She's all about that hustle, and she really did show out in the past 2 games this week.
And it's nice to see someone like her, getting in and being one of the first few players off the bench, depending on if you're going tall or not, um, just to get in there and just add energy for your team because, we talked about it in the first episode. It's a long season. It's 40 games. You talked about the depth. We're going to keep going back to the depth this year. Barring injuries, the depth of this team will be one of its biggest facilitators in their success. And so she just adds a layer of depth and experience because she played 1 year with the Mystics and then 5 years with Dallas. So you got someone that knows how to stay in the league, stay healthy, and do all the things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, looking at the kind of scores we've had, we're not gonna have every single game where we're gonna have one of our, our John Cole Jones or your Brianna Stewart's dropping insane numbers of points. That's not simply not gonna happen every single game. Some of these league players, they're gonna have bad games, and this is when these other players on from the bench coming in from the rest of the roster have to maintain that consistency that so far in their careers they've proven that they're able to do all this kind of, I suppose, background work that actually contributes so much more to the team than they're given credit for. So absolutely, like consistency will be one of the biggest factors across the entire roster, but in particular for those players who are very defensively strong, very much just there to get the ball, give it to your Ionescu, your Vandersloot, or whoever, and just really add that last cog kind of to the machine.
Well, talk about the cogs in the machine and those role players that do all the things. but it's New York. We gotta have some flash. The flash is
Oh, yeah.
coming in Marine Johannes. She's not there yet. Got a bronze medal with France in the Tokyo Olympics, and was a highlight reel last year when she was there. And so Johannes isn't even back yet. So there's another one
Yeah,
that
yeah.
we oh, I'm gonna be so excited when she's around.
No, I'm so excited as well. I kind of was watching the game and I was halfway through and it just clicked. I was like, Johannes, she's not even here. I was like, wait, hang on, she's not played a minute yet. And they started talking that she's still finishing up some other like basketball commitments elsewhere. And I was like, we still have so much yet to come. Like, here's me thinking, like, oh wow, this crazy start to season. Look how well we're playing together. You know, Stewie, everything. Yet we're yet to see Johannes come on. I mean, she averaged 10 points per game last season. 3 assists. Like she's solid. She's a flashy player, and she is great fun to watch. I'm so excited for when she comes back.
Well, and then you have international experience, which is so many players that do. Looked up some more facts on Kayla Thornton. She won a championship in Korea in a Korean league. So there's another because we talked about other championship
Yeah.
experience, and she's got an Olympic medal. She's played for France, and I don't I can't tell you how excited I was every, like, week just to see a Johannes highlight that was getting on not WNBA recaps, but, like, on whenever you make SportsCenter Top 10 with your literally over the head pass for, the cut for the layup. It's like, "Okay, this is gonna be fun," because they had fun against the Fever, which, rightly so. Home opener, Stewie's killing it, but to have that extra layer of fun in a season when it's a grind is gonna add to it, and that's what the flash of Johannes will also bring because the smiles and the joy in that Fever game is what I think, most looking forward to besides the wins.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it was really just great to see even from the progression from the game against Mystics to the game against Fever. Of course, we know like Mystics are amazingly strong team. They have some like all-star players, but just to see like the chemistry between the players and the way that the dynamic shifted, it's so great to see that we have that potential coming into the season. Yes, we still have additions to kind of bring on. We have for example, I loved that one of my favorite moments of the game was when Han Shu got subbed on, and the crowd went mental, and it just made me so happy and so excited to know that this is what it's going to be like, kind of going into the season. It's such an amazing fan base as well, such a great energy for the team, and just like you said, smiles all round from everyone, and
Well,
even like the confidence from Han Shu. She comes on and immediately she's like, "I want this first bucket, this first 3." She didn't score any, but the confidence that she had to just coming off the bench, kinda getting subbed in quite late in the game, to just, "I want that ball, I'm gonna shoot it." Like, that's what I'm here to do. It's
well
yeah, I'm looking forward so much to this season.
well, you talking about that clip when she was acting like she was running on and Sabrina's behind
Yeah.
her, like, laughing? It's it's weird to say adorable, and I know people don't call men adorable as much as they should because, men also do adorable things that are professional players, but it was literally just adorable, and
Ye
Sabrina's laughing at it, and I was like, "This is the excitement of this year, is everything happening on that." Um, so, kinda hitting all the players, we'll make sure and then just since we're hitting all the players, I hit Epiphany Prince came in and had, over 20 minutes and hit a 3, and then there's also the depth of the bench with her experience, and then Willoughby's another player that is gonna come in and do the things like Thornton that are just gonna be worked
Mhm.
in energy, so sky's the
Yeah, no,
limit. Not the
no,
sky's the limit, the Statue of Liberty is the limit
the sta
for them
the
because we
Statue
can't
of
say the
Liberty
sky. Yeah.
sure is the limit. No,
Yeah.
I must say as well, Epiphany Prince, watching her play, she was hustling, like, it was really, really nice to see the energy that she was bringing to the team. I know she's also had a bit of difficulty in terms of, like, trades and she's in the team right now as part of a hardship contract, I believe, but she came on and she worked. She was again one of these kind of background players, who, you know, didn't have the most flashy stats, didn't have any, like, particularly flashy plays, anything like that, but she just worked and she provided for the team, and she certainly needs to have credit given to her for that.
Well, and it's just the depth of experience when we talked about how they used to be they were so young and ate some trades and did that, and they've got the experience now. Piff's one of those experienced players, played with
Mhm.
Seattle, you know, been a backup to Sue, and then I know with her and Jordan Canada, um, you know, this the time spent there when Sue was hurt. She's just great. She can shoot lights out. I believe that she had at one point had like 105 points in a high school basketball game in like one half. I think that's a real thing.
Oh my
Um, like, or maybe it was the whole game. Lisa Leslie had like 101 in one half, and I think Piff had like 105 in a whole game. Again,
that's
like
crazy.
I was like, yeah, because she's shoot and another, you know, Rutgers player like with Betnijah. It's just yeah, the contract of keeping Piff around is great.
Mhm.
S but speaking of contracts, they did waive Dee Richards, and we talked about Dee Dee's toughness coming back from paralysis at Baylor, and James and Michelle hit this in Across the Pond WNBA podcast, and James said that he thought someone's gonna pick up Dee Dee, and I hope so, because she's just energy and joy as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think she was certainly one of the fan favorites on the team, which became very apparent, and it is a real shame to lose someone like that who is so well loved on the team. But like I think we kind of touched on it last week as well. It is just so difficult with the WNBA right now, only having such a limited number of teams, only having such a limited space on every roster that I mean, you see the amount of college players that come in and get drafted, and the majority of them get waived. A lot of other players kind of get taken off teams, and it is a real shame. I mean, hopefully at some point the league can expand and can allow for less players to have their kind of potential and their talent wasted. I think Dee Dee is really one of these big kind of real disappointment ones for me that it's just such a shame to see her go. Yeah.
Yep. And Rebecca Lobo talked about how if there was just 2 spots available to add to the each team for the league, you know, for the injuries and not that like hardship contracts, but roster spots for cap space for practice players. So if someone does go down, then you don't have to like go and look for someone to come and join the roster in the season on those types of contracts. And that would add at the right now 24 more spots to the WNBA. And I remember her saying that, and I was like, that would just be so great to do, just to have 2 more per team. But that is in the future. One can hope with the growth of
Mm,
how this league is going and the numbers that they put up for the first weekend. So let's hope that is on the way.
yeah, absolutely, and yeah, like you're saying about numbers, this is a complete sidetrack from our Liberty focus, but it was the Mercury Sparks game, I believe, broke the record for like the most views of a WNBA game.
It's
So
BG
it's
back.
BG. She's back, and she played well. Yeah, so like we said, it is just that kind of hope for as the progression of the league happens, as we get kind of more viewership, more attention, hopefully things like extending the rosters, even expanding in terms of team numbers, hopefully that can kind of come into play.
Yeah, that is that is the hope for the league. It's in year 27. So hopefully by the, you know, another 27 years we'll have so many more teams and so many players don't have to go overseas to make money so they can
Mhm.
make their living here and stay and keep their bodies healthy and you know, maybe sometime we'll get the WNBA in the winter also like during basketball
Yeah,
season.
yeah, that would
That'd
be
be
cool.
nice. These
That'd be
are
nice.
far off dreams that
Yeah.
will become reality. They will become
One
reality.
day,
Yeah, putting it out there in the world.
manifest it.
All right. Back to the Liberty. We've got 2 games this week. They play who this is your pick, who the Sun, the Connecticut Sun,
Yeah.
who beat the Mystics twice at home and on the road. Whew, the Connecticut Sun. The Liberty are playing them at Barclays in Brooklyn, and it is a game on CBS at 1 p.m. Eastern time. It's on CBS. That makes me so happy. But it's the Sun. Oof, oof. That's
Ye
what I have to say about
yeah.
it.
I am so looking forward to this game. I really, really loved watching the Sun last season. They were kind of a team that I felt I was particularly following as the season came to an end. I am just so excited to see them play. But my thing is, I kind of feel there are a lot of similarities with the Mystics and the Sun. I didn't manage to catch the Mystics Suns games, but from watching the Mystics play the Liberty, their kind of defense and just how in tune they were with each other and the hustle was very reminiscent of how the Sun were playing last year. So I'm kind of I'm getting a little bit nervous to watch
Yeah.
this to watch the game this weekend and see how the Liberty fare against like such tough defense again because I mean they didn't feel they did a very great job on the other day against the Mystics. So who knows? But I'm so excited to watch them play.
Oh, the fact that the Sun beat the Mystics at home and then play them again a few days later in Washington, and the Sun have played 3 games this year. They're 3-0, they're at the top of the league standings, and like I said about Natasha Cloud when the Liberty came in, "Oh, you're supposed to be good this year. Let's find out how good you are." I think the Sun have that chip on their shoulder. Their coach for the past I think Kurt Miller got there in 2016, so that'd be 7 seasons, yep, 16 to 22 is gone, and then they have Stephanie White. I believe they wanted, a former WNBA player as their coach, so you have a first-year coach for your team. She's coached for the Fever, she's coached college at Vanderbilt, but I feel like the Sun also have a little bit of a chip on their shoulder to be like, You wanna talk about super? What's up?" Especially because their consistency over the past few years and Dewana, AT, Bree Jones, Heidemann, Tiffany Hayes is, they got the trade and they got Hayes up there. I feel like Connecticut just wants to they just wanna just come down and just hammer people. Um, and so it is definitely gonna be a battle, and so we'll see the toughness after losing to the Mystics and then beating up on the Fever to get the confidence. What
Yeah,
the Liberty are gonna do against the Sun. That is well, and you in Scotland actually get a good time. You can watch this. It's on at what,
I
6
know.
o'clock? Yeah.
Yeah. I'm
Oh,
excited. I'm excited for a good time for me to tune into a game. It's I really enjoy that. Like on the weekends, the games are usually a little bit earlier, and I'm like having a nice Sunday, nice Saturday, whatever, getting to watch basketball and not be shattered the next day. So yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. And like you said, absolutely, they are gonna have an absolute chip on their shoulder. They did play fantastically last season and just kind of fell short but, I like that comparison that you made with Natasha Cloud and the Connecticut Sun. I think they both kind of play with that chip on their shoulder, that kind of underdog energy that, when you come into a game, no, maybe not to say that Liberty do this, but when you come into a game and you don't have all these expectations, your head's not kind of getting a bit above yourself where you're like, "Oh, we're a super team, we're gonna come out and smash these players," and then you kind of choke a little bit the Sun have that where they know that they need to work. They know that they need to work and they need to maintain their consistency that they've been showing for the past few seasons. They don't have the same huge super team label, super team expectation as the Liberty have. So, in my opinion, they have that slight edge over the Liberty where, you know, like we touched on last week, they don't have that same kind of pressure and I'm very excited to see them come out and just fight. I'm really intrigued to see how the Liberty kind of adjust their offense to work against the Sun defense.
yeah. It's gonna be interesting the level of fight that's gonna happen because it's not, and we say super team because so many people have thrown it out there, and I know that New York and Vegas haven't said that, but they know the expectations, and when they get all the attention. It's just kind of it just adds to it, and that Sun kind of fight spirit is gonna come through. So I may just lean again toward the Sun, which I'm not gonna lean towards teams that are playing against the Liberty this whole season. Just maybe like, these tough teams in like this first month, and then after that, I'm gonna be like
Yeah.
Liberty, 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 Liberty. So
Yeah.
they have the Sun, and then they get to go back to Seattle on Tuesday, and Seattle, ooh, that's a buzzsaw that ran into in Vegas. And the Storm, after being, I believe, the best team in the W over the whole 25 years with the 4 titles. I know Minnesota has 4, but they got theirs all in 1 decade. The consistency of the Storm, but it's going to be a new Storm team, and it's going to rebuild. And this is going to be interesting. Stewie gets to go back to Seattle, but I mean, I have the Liberty should own the Storm on that Tuesday game.
No, absolutely. Like in my opinion, you're probably right about the Sun, but I think there's no doubt in my mind that I'm waiting to be proved wrong, but they will come out and they will smash the Storm. It will be also really nice to see kind of Stuart go back to a place where she's been so loyal to for many years, and also just coming off of that brand new career high with only 2 games with her new team to kind of just it's a very kind of interesting thing to watch unfold and see how she was an MVP, she's in the W25, and that's all to do with her time spent at the Storm, and now she's come out and right off the bat she has exceeded that kind of level that she has been at in previous seasons. So it will be very interesting to see this game.
And also, I mean, she had the 2 titles at Seattle. They interviewed her after her 45 game. How do you feel being in your home state, surrounded by friends and family, and the New York Liberty fans? And she said, I think I made the right decision. It's a little bit of a
Yeah,
paraphrase. Oh,
yeah,
so I was like, as much as there's a certain loyalty to who drafted you, you got to do what's best for you. Stewie's wife's in Spain. It's closer for them to get to Spain with her wife, like in New York. But that's got to hit Seattle like a little bit. But they love Stewie, but still, that's kind of like, oh,
yeah.
made the
That, that
made
that's
yeah.
that's got hurt. That's got hurt a little bit, but I think ultimately, from the outside perspective, anyway, it seems that the relationship between the Storm and Stuart has remained very, very much a loving relationship, very much
Yes.
appreciative of each other and the time spent. So I'm sure they won't take that comment the wrong way and will understand that it's her own personal kind of circumstances that have led to it. But yeah,
Yeah. I
excited.
I agree on that. It's just yeah, just like a small bit of motivation.
Mm,
But as I learned
me
from
too.
a recent episode of Ted Lasso, sometimes the anger motivation does not pan out. That's
Yeah.
yeah. So uh I have the Sun beating the Liberty and the Storm getting trounced by the Liberty this week.
Mhm.
I I want to be wrong. I want to have a 2-0 Liberty week. We will see. Uh
Yeah. I mean
yeah.
I've got to agree with you there. I just think the Sun feed off energy and they have that energy right now. So I mean if any team is gonna break it, maybe the Liberty are there, but I had the Mystics. So we'll see. But I agree. I have a feeling it'll be Sun and then Liberty beating the Storm, but I would like to be proven wrong.
Yes. I love how I'm gonna go against our girls and then be like, "Prove me wrong, please. Please
Yeah.
prove me
Please.
wrong.
Please.
Please. Please." Uh, so, uh oh, gosh. Yeah.
A long episode. We've talked about a lot of stuff. Talked about the kind of recap of the games from this week, improvement in team chemistry, and of course Brianna Stewart's absolutely smashing game, breaking left records left, right, and center.
It I mean,
So
she's
yeah,
saying that, they don't think that a super team player can get MVP this year, and so he's like, "Are you sure?
yeah.
Are you Are you sure?
We'll
Are you
see,
sure?
we'll see.
Are you sure? Well, best of luck to the Liberty this week, and we will all hear you guys, have you guys tune in next week. Hope you can keep joining us. But until then, for Across the Pond Liberty, I'm Stacia.
And I'm Kirsten.
All right. See you next week.
See you guys next week.